If you've ever felt like your pelvic floor is quiet or unresponsive or confusing, please hear this. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a simple sign that the muscles speak a different language. They're not speaking to you in the same way as your quads and your glutes. It's subtle, it's responsive, it's relational, works with your whole body, and it works with it, just to emphasize that, not against it. And it's deeply, beautifully supported. You're not failing, and your body's not failing you. You're more whole than you've been led to believe.
Welcome to Hope for Your Pelvic Floor, the podcast where honest conversation meets real evidence-based solutions for your pelvic health. I'm Sparrow, second-generation Pilates teacher, educator and best-selling author. I'm here to help you understand your body better, move with confidence, and finally get answers that make sense. Each week, we'll bust myths, share insights from movement science and pelvic health research, and give you practical steps you can actually use in your everyday life. Because pelvic health isn't just about exercises, it's about reconnecting with yourself, one breath, one choice, and one movement at a time. Let's get started.
Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to what is actually the final episode of season 3. And not only that, it's actually the final episode of 2025. I honestly can't believe that we're here, how quickly the year goes. I think we're all probably feeling the same way. How are we approaching Christmas already? And I also wanted to begin this episode by just giving a shout out of gratitude. I always really appreciate all of you listening, whether you tune in every week or whether you've been dipping into specific episodes that mean something to you. I really appreciate you listening, and also for sharing the podcast. It really makes such a huge difference. You know, my goal is to give hope to women, to put hope for their pelvic floor in their hands, as many women as we can all over the world. And you play such an important role in that vision, in that dream and that goal. And this community that we're growing and developing together just means so much to me. Your messages, your reflections, your stories, your stories of hope. We recently had the most beautiful review about the membership, in fact, and a lady had shared on there that actually in the time that she's been in the membership, it's completely changed her life. And that gives me goosebumps and makes me feel so happy that I'm doing the right thing, that we're creating something of real value that is meeting the goal of giving hope for women, and also getting us off the sidelines of our lives and really living. So thank you so much. It just all reminds me of why I'm here doing the podcast every week for you. So anyway, today's episode, being that it's the final episode of season 3, well, it's kind of a funny one because I did think, okay, I'm planned to do a season finale recap of the season and of the whole year and all the topics. And when you look at all the topics we've covered a lot, and yet all of them fall into, in some way or other, into the concepts of the whole body pelvic health method. So that's the overriding theme that I see, and the lens that I teach through, speak through, everything kind of comes through that lens. However, even although that was what I thought I would talk about in this kind of recap, something happened recently. I had an experience that really has shifted me, and it's I feel quite emotional to talk about it because it has been a really big turning point for me and confirmation, actually, in just what I was saying to you before about what I'm doing with Hope for Your Pelvic Floor, with the whole body pelvic health method, sometimes it feels like I'm swimming against the tide, and I constantly question, am I doing the right thing? Is this really the way to help women? Is this really better than Kegels? Is this really going to make the impact that I believe women deserve? And so instead of doing this kind of recap, I decided to share a little bit about this recent experience that I've had, because I just always really like to be honest and transparent and be where I am in the process of life as a woman, as an educator, as a mom, and as a leader, someone who's pushing forwards in this different way. So something that really shifted for me recently was in the experience of spending an entire week in a really deep anatomy training. And what was interesting is I didn't go for this week intensive with any preconceived notions or ideas of what I might come away with or anything that I particularly wanted to learn. I just wanted to see in 3D what it is that I've learned and dedicated so much time to in, the decades of doing what I've been doing. So walking into this kind of anatomy class, this deep dive, I thought I had a good level of knowledge, and I still think I do. I've seen so many 3D models and been in so many different lectures and courses and the fascia symposiums and online education with leaders in the field of fascia research and biotensegrity. And you don't need to worry about those big words, but I was like really taking my anatomy quite seriously and have done. And I really felt like I could see things in 3D, but nothing really compares to being in this educational environment, a really supportive educational environment where you can explore the body in 3 dimensions, where you can actually see how one bit relates to another bit. And I always say, when one thing moves, all things move, everything's connected to everything. And I know it. And to see it changes everything. And in particular, the moment that I saw the pelvic floor, I really felt myself almost step into the back of my body. I stepped back in myself to sit with what that experience was like, because I know where it is. It is deep inside of the pelvis. And then to see it, it's almost deeper than I perceived it to be. So we're shown in images this sort of really simple, tidy D illustration that makes the pelvic floor muscles look 2D, look flat. And of course, I've raved on about this enough, it's not a floor, but they call it the pelvic floor, and I refer to it as that because that's what we know it as. But when you see everything so deep and so interrelated, it's a very deep experience. I felt emotionally kind of step back and like, wow, this is really so much deeper. It's hidden. It's like it's nestled in, it's embraced by the bony structure of your pelvis. It's carefully, beautifully crafted piece of architecture. It is absolutely magic to me. And even although I know and have taught for a long time that it's many muscles interwoven, it's interwoven deep into the sacrum. That's why it's a back and a roof and not a floor. And it's embedded, forming part of the back of your pelvis. And then when you see it, when I saw it, I was like, oh my, it's like really embedded. So I can know in my cognitive mind that it is embedded here, but it really is embedded. It is so fine and so integrated and interwoven. It's just freaking magnificent. And it's so funny, as I want to say, it's not in isolation. It's so funny to me because I say it all the time. It doesn't work in isolation. It's spontaneous. It works with the muscles surrounding it. And then in reality, just to see how it's almost supported from below and above, like it's the queen, or, like it's just the most important bit. And it's unassuming. And it is subtle and it is graceful. It's why, like, how misleading is it that it's called a floor? Because it's not. It's not a floor in the sense of it or in the anatomy of it. It's a back wall, a cradle, a diaphragm in your body. And it just makes so much sense to me that it's not a surprise that women struggle when they're told to squeeze a muscle that doesn't behave anything like other muscles that we can relate to. When I saw the quads, those big chunky bad boys at the front of your legs, the hamstrings and the adductors, all those big muscly muscles compared to the pelvic floor, which is graceful and subtle and fanning out. And it doesn't have any likeness to those big, strong, sturdy muscles. It's just so much more soft and subtle. And there's a reason, I've said before, there's a reason. The pelvic floor isn't meant to behave like the quads and the hamstrings and all those things. It doesn't puff up and swell up and bulk like those muscles. You don't act on those muscles in that same way. So when you're told to squeeze, it just doesn't make any sense, because we think about those muscles like we can all clench our glutes and that's a sense of squeezing and we can feel that, but you're not feeling that same sensation in your pelvic floor, in that diaphragm, because it's not the same structure. It's not the same type of structure as your quads and hamstrings and your glutes when you clench them. So it just doesn't make any sense to squeeze them. And also when you try to squeeze them and you're not feeling things, or you're not even trying to squeeze them, but you're doing whole body pelvic health and you're really embracing that, it is spontaneous and it works with you, but you don't feel something. And I know, because the question comes to me all the time, whether I'm teaching Pilates at my studio or students to teach Pilates, it's where should I feel this? Should I be feeling this? How should I be feeling this? All of this question around feeling. And we're not necessarily going to feel the pelvic floor in the way that we feel other areas of the body. It also requires a stimulation, we call it biofeedback, to be able to work and potentially feel anyway. But if we're looking for the wrong sensation of feeling, it's just not going to happen. It really was quite a big thing for me to see in reality what I've perceived and what I've understood, to really see how almost like the muscles of your legs are like the legs of a table and your pelvic diaphragm. And it's not a great image because it should be flexible, but I want you to understand the vital role that your legs play to supporting your pelvic floor. It's maybe even like your pelvic floor is a trophy and all of those muscles are helping to hold that trophy up because it's so important. Your pelvis is so important. And it got me really thinking beyond the anatomy of it, of my experience in the anatomy course. It got me, I'm a bit philosophical anyway, and it got me really thinking about how your pelvis, how your pelvic diaphragm is the kind of philosophical center of you. It literally, so anatomically, your sacrum right in the center of that is your center, and your pelvic floor is weaving deeply integrated into the back of your sacrum. So your pelvic floor is this quiet, deep, unassuming center. It's not loud and leery like your quads or your hip flexors or your glutes. It doesn't shout and scream for your attention. It doesn't dominate. And it's not meant to. It just does, in an ideal world, exactly what's needed. Not more, not less. It's just enough. And it just made me think about us as women. We do so much and we're powering through. And could we be more like our pelvic diaphragm? So it's weaving at the center. It doesn't push hard, doesn't have that kind of power push that, sometimes we have this phrase called the powerhouse in Pilates. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that phrase, but it's a power in a positive way, powerhouse in a positive way. It's the resilient kind, the relational, balancing the relationships between the upper and lower body. How many of you can relate that? Balancing, juggling relationships. Maybe you're in the sandwich generation. You're balancing and juggling between children and parents. You're juggling the dynamics of your children's relationships. You're in a marriage. You're in friendships, work relationships. How many of you feel like you are that dynamic pelvic floor in the center, dealing with the relational aspect of it, the kind that knows how to call on support from the legs and the torso, the breath and the spine, or support from a colleague, a friend, a parent, a sibling. We can really relate ourselves as women to that powerhouse center, our powerful pelvic diaphragm. So what if we could live like that? What if we allowed ourselves to trust in our support, the support of the legs to your pelvic floor, the pelvic floor to everything else, everything to your pelvic floor, and just trust it to do enough, to stop gripping and striving and holding everything together alone? Because so often, and I'm sure as I was saying it a moment ago, you were thinking, I don't really ask friends or colleagues for support and help. Hands up. I'm putting my hand up because I had a conversation yesterday where I said, actually, I'm not that great at asking for help when I need it. So thank you for offering me an opportunity to say out loud when I need help. I think many of us are just plowing on, and the pelvic floor does exactly the same thing. When we're not giving attention to it, it's just going to keep plowing on, making do and sacrificing and not calling on the legs for support, not calling on the breath for support. It's when we stop and pause and invite whole body pelvic health concepts into our body. That's when our pelvic floor can coordinate and be in balance with everything else. The deepest part of you. It's not forceful, and yet it is profoundly strong. It's your center. It's that truth and deep center of you. And that just came through for me so strongly in the experience that I had in this really deep dive into anatomy, an intensive week, long days, really looking at in 3D and being with the pelvis. It was really just profound, really profound at how it holds and supports us. And I feel such a different appreciation of my own pelvis and love for it, because like you listening, my journey is still not a straight line. It's never going to be just a straight line. And so there are moments where I feel negatively towards my body and my pelvis. And this reminded me of just how important it is. Bringing it to a close today and kind of bringing that experience that I had to the season that we've just had of the podcast. So Hope for Your Pelvic Floor, season 3, the podcast that I thought I'll give it a go and see if I've got anything to say for a few weeks. Now I'm just so almost addicted to the topics and the conversation, and like in a good way. I think about it all the time. And the information I think that you will want to hear, the information I know you ask me to share. So really, I just absolutely love it. And it does make me giggle that I didn't think that I would have much to say. Anyway, you already know I have plenty to say because I have been doing it for 3 seasons now. So bringing this new understanding to everything that we've explored this season, it kind of all came into sharper focus for me. And I've broken this down into not just the episodes that we've had, but actually those concepts that I mentioned at the beginning, the whole body pelvic health concepts. And the beginning of that is breath. And this is why we always start with breath. The diaphragm and the pelvic diaphragm are partners. They are beautiful, beautiful partners. They shape each other. They mirror one another. Breath is not optional, isn't like, oh yeah, once you get the exercise, add the breath. Actually, the breath is the exercise. It's our first movement of life. It is the foundation. And that's why so many episodes, my recommendations at the end are to do some breathing exercises and then release. So this is why release work matters. These deep relational muscles don't respond to gripping or micromanaging. That would be your Kegels and squeezes. They respond to ease, space, and safety. Mental safety and physical safety in your body. And then we have the range of movement and whole body support. And this is why we talked about the walking and the feet and hips and pelvis and how we manage load and the variety of activity that we do, the importance of moving in lots and lots of different directions. Because the pelvic floor is supported by everything around it. It really is not working in isolation because it's not meant to be. And we also have the nervous system and the neuromuscular coordination, the ability for your brain and your body to work in coordination, to have your pelvic floor support you. You know, it underpins it all. Subtle, deep muscles only reveal themselves when the body feels safe. And of course, it wouldn't be fair to not mention the important stories of hope. This season, I've brought forwards and filtered in stories of the reconnection that women are making. I mentioned today the review that somebody felt her life was changed and so much better having done the whole body pelvic health membership. Not harder work or not pushing through, but waking up the relationship in the body that was always meant to be there. It's not new. It's just unearthing what is already there. I feel like I've offloaded rather a lot on you in this episode, but it really meant a lot to me to share my experience and just how profound the pelvis and the pelvic floor really are. So if you've ever felt like your pelvic floor is quiet or unresponsive or confusing, please hear this. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a simple sign that the muscles speak a different language. They're not speaking to you in the same way as your quads and your glutes speak. It's subtle, it's responsive, it's relational. Like I said, it works with your whole body and it works with it, just to emphasize that, not against it. And it's deeply, beautifully supported. You're not failing and your body's not failing you. You're more whole than you've been led to believe. And bringing our episode to a close, I wanted to share a little bit about what's coming ahead in 2026. Isn't it bonkers to be talking about 2026? It seems almost like sci-fi date, but that's where we're going. So we move into 2026. I am going to be carrying on this sort of process with the podcast. And I'm also reshaping some of it to include bringing on a monthly guest. So I'm looking for guests to join the conversation just once a month. And those guests are people who I believe can share really important insights and information with you, or guests who can share their stories, their experiences, their achievements, their stories of overcoming pelvic floor adversity, and they will inspire, hopefully, all of you listening. So if you want to be on the show, or you know someone that would have a really good story to share, or there's someone that you think, oh, I'd love to hear what they say about pelvic floor health, let me know. You can drop me a DM or an email and we'll look at bringing those guests on next year. I feel quite sad and emotional closing up this episode. I do very much enjoy speaking with you every week. We will be back in the new year. So thank you once again for being here, for listening, learning, reflecting, and growing with me this season. Thank you for your trust. It really is an honor that I get to walk this path with you. Your center is strong, your body is wise, and you are never alone on this journey. I'll see you in 2026.
Thank you for tuning in to Hope for Your Pelvic Floor. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs it. It really does help more women find the hope they deserve. For deeper support, head over to wholebodypelvichealth.co.uk to explore the Whole Body Pelvic Health membership. You can ask for more from your pelvic floor, and I'll be here, your voice of hope every step of the way.